I found this tower that gives me an excellent overview of the entire battlefield. And I'm going to be describing in as best detail as I possibly can all these different points and how they relate to the battle. I'm probably going to make a few errors, so I apologize in advance, but I'm going to try to do the best I can to give a brief overview of the 3 days of the battle in this quick little video. Starting off, this building right here, it was pretty well depicted in the movie Gettysburg. Sam Elliott playing Colonel John Buford in the very top of that red building, that tower, having a practical view of General Heath's division coming from that direction towards the town. So Buford set up a blockade with his cavalry division with the explicit intention of basically blockading the town from the Confederates until Major General John Reynolds arrived with reinforcements. The night before the battle, he sent out riders to go to John Reynolds, who was in the vicinity, for reinforcements to try to help fight off Heath's division. Neither side initially intended to fight a battle in this location, but the Union had, at that point, the high ground, and the Confederacy was trying to get to Harrisburg because they were trying to hit an arms depot. There is a hypothesis regarding a shoe factory, but I have found little evidence to support this, aside from maybe the History Channel game, so I'm not going to bank on that one too much. But on the first day, Buford didn't exactly think that he had a lot of time left before he thought his troops were going to be overrun. When Buford was able to see Reynolds come through his view in this tower, and Reynolds brought a very large portion of the Union Army with him. 2 days prior to this battle, Reynolds had actually turned down the position of commanding general because he didn't want to deal with the politics and potentially getting fired by Lincoln. So Reynolds came in support from this direction over here. Over in that direction, there actually is a memorial for John Reynolds. There's a statue of him in the exact place where he got hit by a sharpshooter in the back of the head. The first day of the battle was mainly that aspect of it, though Lee, Longstreet, Ewell, and Hood did come in reserve as well to try to back up Heath's division, even though his orders were, do not attack. They fought anyway. And Buford basically incited it in order to hold the high ground. Reynolds brought enough reinforcements that the Union was able to take up the high ground along this area right along here. So I'm going to stop at this point right here. This right here is Little Round Top. This becomes big on the second day of battle, but the Union was basically right along this tree line up until about right here at this this peach orchard, and then they basically were just lined up right along here, along what is called Cemetery Ridge. And right about where my finger is, it basically just juts out in a right angle and just goes back into the tree line off that direction, following the high ground, in what is called a tactical fish hook. Most depictions you'll find of of the Battle of Gettysburg, you'll find the Union in that defensive fishhook position, defending the high ground, whilst the Confederacy continued to make assault after assault in this direction. And while on the far side, the Confederacy did attack on the second day of battle on July 2nd, the main fighting was over here on Little Round Top. One of the Union generals went against orders and moved his troops forward to try to repel the assault. So the Union was actually forced to fill in the holes. Well, Little Round Top was the very edge. Colonel Chamberlain actually ended up winning a Medal of Honor for being able to defend the far left flank of the Union Army. Had the Confederacy managed to swing around Little Round Top and cut off the Union Army from the back, the Confederacy might have actually won the battle, because it was really close that day. But with virtually no ammunition left, Colonel Chamberlain ordered a bayonet charge, which you only do as a last resort. He ordered a bayonet charge into the Confederate Army. Seeing men willing to attack you with a bayonet is possibly one of the most frightening things you'll ever see, if you ever see it. And in all my research I've done up to this point, this is in the book The Killer's Angel, written by Michael Shera about this battle. It is the only time I've ever read about any occurrence of seeing Johnny Reb run from the battlefield. I actually stopped and reread that page multiple times just to make sure that what I read was correct. The Rebs ran that day. Prior to that, they prided themselves on never running from the battlefield. Tactical retreats can happen, but not running. That was the main fighting of the second day, was at the flanks. And because both flanks held up, Lee thought on the third day that the Union was weakest in the center since it saw the least action. Well, that simply wasn't true. On the third day, most of the fighting happened right along this ridgeline, right throughout here. There's a road there now, but there was a stone wall built up at the time. And then the rebels were along Seminary Ridge, which basically is right along this tree line, all the way down through here, and goes all the way to about there. Where I was talking about earlier was where Pickett's charge, or Longstreet's assault, primarily took place. They basically gathered somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40,000 men to charge across this open field right here. This one fence line, only part of it is there now, but you could see it, and it went all the way across the battlefield at the time. And that type of fence, you see the jagged form of it, that is how it was back then, and that was not a mistake. Part of that, the reason why they did that was for agricultural purposes. While a person can climb over the top of it, a cow's not going to know how to. So basically it was the 18th and 19th century barbed wire. Well, that held a tactical advantage for anyone not trying to cross it. So whenever Johnny Reb was coming from right about there, going across. They actually had to stop in order to cross that fence, jump over it, and then try to continue their assault. The main idea that Longstreet had was to lay enough artillery fire from right about here onto this ridge over here, designed with the purpose of overpowering the other side through artillery fire, taking out the cannons, allowing the Confederate troops to be able to march across scot-free. Only it didn't work. Neither side was able to get an advantage. Longstreet openly wept whenever General Pickett asked him, "Shall I initiate the charge?" before nodding, because he couldn't actually say the word. Pickett, Pettigrew, and Trimble. Pickett led the charge. That's why it's known as his charge. Pettigrew and Trimble were in reserve. And then they marched straight across and just got slaughtered. Only in one place, right about there, did the Confederate troops manage to get to the Union Army. Only the Union had the stone wall, they had the artillery. They had not been marching a full mile across this in July 3rd heat, no less. They were approximately 28,000 Confederates died in this battle, the vast majority of which were at this battle. When it became clear that the Confederates were not going to be able to break the Union center, Pettigrew and Trimble's divisions retreated, and it wasn't a tactical retreat. They were going back in ones, twos, threes, basically trying to get their wounded back over to this tree line right here. And on July 4th, while retreating, the Confederates did try to set up a defense, assuming that George Meade, who was the commanding general on the Union side at the time, might try a tactical assault. His troops were just as exhausted, and they needed to rest. So he let the Confederate Army go, where they regrouped in Maryland, Hagerstown, Cashman, those areas, and they continued into Virginia. Robert E. Lee would never attempt to assault the North. This was the second and final battle that took place in the Union, or specifically on the East Coast. Missouri's kind of a misnomer, so to speak. The other battle being Antietam in Maryland. If you'd like to add some, please do. If you need to make some corrections to something I said, I have a thick skin. I'm not going to feel too bad about it. So this is Adamo Baseball giving my description of the Battle of Gettysburg. Let me know what you think. Cheers.